Hi there and welcome to the 25th episode of Career Stories Live. So today I'm joined by John Espirian, who is the relentlessly helpful LinkedIn nerd. Hi, John.
Hi there, Sarah. Thank you for having me. Delighted to be here.
No problem at all. And I can see we've got our first comment already. And as always, it's Jeff. So hi, Jeff. So he's saying greetings from Metropolis across the pond. Nice to see you, John and Sarah. Namaste. Namaste, Jeff. Thank you for joining as ever. So anybody else who is watching, please do feel free to comment, let us know where you're joining from and ask any questions you've got. So the basis for the live for anyone that's watching, so I know John's also streaming to his page, so there may well be people on here who have no idea what this is all about, but basically I'm a career coach. I've always been really interested in what people do and why they do it. I like learning about different roles and career paths, and that's kind of gave me the idea. So the aim really is to inspire thought about what people could do. And then people hopefully will come on and give advice on places to source information, etc. So I can see we'll just have another comment. So Anne is saying greetings from Cyprus. Nice to see you, Anne. Thank you. Okay, so John, let's go straight over to you then. So can you give me a brief intro to what it is you do now?
Yeah, sure. So I'm John Espirian and I am a LinkedIn consultant. I help people to get organic visibility for themselves and their businesses on LinkedIn and online in general as well. And I run my own community, of which you're a member, Espresso Plus. So that's now actually my main gig, is giving people learning support and accountability on an ongoing basis so that they can do better for themselves on LinkedIn and be good, ethical operators. Brilliant.
Thank you. It's a great intro. So there's a few comments coming through. So I can see someone who is joining from Birmingham. Sorry. We've also got Rachel saying first time watching live from Israel. Love everything that John does. Oh, thank you, Rachel. That's nice for you to join. And Jeanette, who's saying greetings from Denmark. So lovely to have you all here. Thank you very much for joining. Okay, so I've been talking to people about early careers, John. So did you have a job at school? If you did, what was it? Or at university or anything like that?
Honestly, not really. The closest I came was helping to run a tuck shop at school. Okay. So that's my only brush with entrepreneurism before going self-employed. Yeah, that's about it, I'm afraid.
Okay, so tuck shop though, was that stressful at all? Can you people queuing up and all of that kind of stuff?
A lot of sweets went missing. It wasn't my fault.
Really?
Sure of that. But yeah, it felt a bit disorganized. There were about 6 or 7 of us tasked with the role, and divvying up tasks and who gets stock and who counts the till. And yeah, it didn't really feel like running a business was for me. But then I was about 14 at the time, so
yeah, okay, fair enough.
Long time ago.
So okay, so how did you start your career then, or get your first employed position after education?
Well, I took on, finished university and took on what I thought was going to be a temporary job at a call center. Ended up answering calls for people needing technical help for an internet service provider. I thought, I'll do this for 6 months, and I ended up staying at that company for about 10 years. Oh, wow. doing various different roles, eventually going all the way through to running a quality assurance and user acceptance testing team. So we were the people who would not only test the software and hardware, but we'd also listen into the calls that customers were making and the emails they were sending to complain that something was broken, or how do I cancel, or whatever. Yeah. So that gave me a really good grounding in, how does stuff work, and how do people get frustrated when it doesn't work, and how do you fix all of that stuff?
Yeah.
So that was actually a really good baseline for me to build on.
Yeah.
And then, redundancy came, as it has done for so many people, and I couldn't really get an interview, much less a job. And that just led to me thinking, well, what can I do with these skills? And I turned to, I'm all right at writing stuff because I've been doing that for ages, just communicating how stuff works.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what led to the next career, which was technical writing. So
right, okay,
doing that for another 10 or so years as well.
Right, okay. And that's the thing, isn't it? I think often people kind of just get their first job thinking it's going to be a short-term thing, but then 10, 20 years later, you're still there, but moving around, I guess. So did you moved around quite a few times then in that first company?
Yeah, I mean, I went through the ranks. You move to second line support where you're only having to put a headset on when you need to call someone back,
Yeah.
and then you end up speaking really only to more important and VIP customers, and eventually
Mm.
promoted to having some kind of management role. And so, yeah, that's what I ended up doing. But
Yeah.
it was inherently quite a technical thing because the business was quite technical. I mean,
Yeah.
these days, you get a broadband router and plug it in, and generally speaking, it's going to work, and you don't really need to know anything.
Yeah.
Way back then, it was like you plug in your dial-up modem, and
Yeah.
and you've got to get the software installed, and you got to hear it screech away and look for the
Yeah.
lights, and it was a lot more involved.
Lots to go wrong. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
Okay, right. I can see there's more comments coming through. So we have Alice. Hi, Alice. Jeff is saying, love that the Content DNA book is in the background. He's got his close as well. And mine's just on my shelf behind me, actually. Okay. Valentina, sorry, saying, joining from Harrogate. Okay, nice to see
Nice.
you. Thank you. Gail joining from Barbados. Craig Allen is in the house. Thank you, Craig. Ella. Luke Westwood, and then Jeff back again. Yeah, loads of people today. That's great. Okay, so you just mentioned going into technical writing. So technical writing, did that lead to copywriting, or was that kind of part of the
Yeah, it started with what was quite dull and dry, and the kind of user manual approach to things. But actually, I wanted to do something that was a bit more creative than that, and
Yeah.
copywriting is that. It's really the art of persuading people to take an action, rather than just presenting facts as clearly as you can. And so I became more of a marketing copywriter towards the later years. But that never really fulfilled me because I like to share what I do, who I
Yeah.
work with, what I
Yeah.
learn. And I was under non-disclosure agreements with pretty much every client. So I couldn't tell people what I was working on, much less, any fine detail. And that became quite frustrating. And so, I started to, because I'd gone all in on LinkedIn to try and find some clients, I started to move more towards helping people with LinkedIn because people were happier to talk about that.
Right.
And it was
Yeah.
more fun.
Yeah.
And that was, well, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 years ago that I really started getting serious about that.
Yeah.
And then we got to, about a year, 18 months ago, when it was like, okay, I'm really done with this copywriting thing. I've been doing that for more than 10 years. I need to do something else now. And that's when I decided, okay, I'm actually going to monetize my LinkedIn presence. And that's where the community was born.
Yeah, oh, that's great. So when you went into copywriting, did you kind of have to study more? Did you get qualifications or anything like that? Was it learning on the job?
Well, actually, I suppose an in-between was becoming director of an editorial society. So actually proofreading
Okay.
and editing was a route into writing.
Right, okay.
That never paid particularly well, but it was an interesting discipline.
Yeah.
And so, yes, I studied, read all the books about editing and read copywriting and technical writing books, but there was nothing formal beyond, book study and then a lot of practice.
Yeah.
I think good writers have to write a lot.
Yeah.
Get all the rubbish writing out the way so you can get the good stuff coming in later.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was a lot of that going on, but nothing formal.
Yeah. No, that's good. So yeah, I guess so for people that are thinking of becoming copywriters, would you say that's a good route in then to looking at proofreading, editing to start with?
Well, it could be, but I think
Yeah.
you need to just write a lot.
Yeah.
That's the best way to start. And there are good courses out there, and there are good books out there. So surround yourself with the stuff that's going to get you just really involved in the topic, and look up the the potential mentors who can guide you and make clear the kind of mistakes that you're likely to make, because it's being a copywriter, if you're going to run your own business, you have to know the mechanics of what it means to run a business as well, and things like pricing and how to negotiate with clients and how do you write a brief and how do you respond to a brief. There's loads of things that you're going to not know how to do. So if you can find a mentor to kind of handhold you through that, that will probably save you a lot of time and heartache.
Yeah, definitely.
But I don't think you need to, I wouldn't say if you're thinking about becoming a copywriter, you need to suddenly go back to university for 3 years or anything like that. I think it should come down to the results you're able to get. Can you write something that shows that you understand the ideal audience and can persuade them to the action that your client wants them to take. If you can be a writer right now.
Yeah, no, that's good. I've been reading quite a lot actually about copywriters lately, and people talk about this idea of when you're trying to move into that field, spend the first 20 minutes of every day writing. It doesn't really matter what about, but just write stuff that comes into your head. Do you think that's a useful idea?
Yeah, you've got to practice the art, and there will be a lot of terrible writing. Actually, all good writing is editing, to be honest. I mean, the quicker you can get your idea out of your head and onto paper, digital paper or real paper, the better.
Yeah.
Let things stew for a while and then go back and edit it.
Yeah.
That's the essence of good writing. But the more you practice, it's like a muscle.
Yes.
The more you practice, the better at it the stronger at it you'll get.
Yeah. No, good. I've got a few more people joining. So I've got Marjolaine saying, nice to be here. And she loves seeing the current topic of conversation in the lower thirds. Okay. Alice, in the Luxembourg boring place. And Jeff, and there's a bit of networking going on in the comments. So that's good. Always good to see. Brilliant. Okay. So you just touched on this anyway. So switching from copywriting to being a LinkedIn consultant. So how did you make that transition? So I suppose in terms of convincing yourself it was the right thing to do, how did you know you were going to get enough clients, all of that kind of stuff?
I did prevaricate. I could have done this probably a couple of years ago, but I didn't really believe that it was going to work. So I think I held off for too long.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I was aware that despite calling myself a copywriter on LinkedIn, behind the scenes, I was actually training some people who would pitch themselves as LinkedIn trainers, were coming to me for advice because I like the whole data and analytics and the nerdy experimentation side, which a lot of people don't have the time or the energy or the aptitude to do themselves. And I would do that work and end up sharing it with people who were already training LinkedIn. And so, kind of the penny dropped that I'm perfectly capable of doing this. So then I started taking on consultations, corporate training and stuff like that. But even that wasn't satisfying on its own, because working with corporates is okay for paying the bills, but actually I like just helping normal members of the public just promote their own businesses. So I like working with self-employed people and really, really small businesses who are trying to do something good in the world. And that's what led to actually the specialism, which is running the LinkedIn focused community, which is Espresso Plus.
No, that's good. And have you been pleased with how that's gone? Are you kind of pleased with the people that have joined and all of that kind of stuff?
Yeah, it's been a lot of work. I've probably never worked quite as hard as this in the last 18 months since we launched, but it's the most fulfilling work that I've done, because people often say that you should speak more to your clients. Well, I'm speaking to my clients every single day, because it's members like you who ultimately are paying my bills, and I want to know how I can help you, what questions you've got, what concerns you've got, and there is no middleman. It's me talking to all of you. So that's, from that point of view, it's great. But on the other hand, I'm not the kind of person who's going to be sell and hard-nosed business person all the time. And so attracting people, keeping people engaged, and it's always a fight for people's attention because there's so many other things going on. That makes it hard. It does make it hard, but I wouldn't want to go back to any previous career. I'm really quite happy doing what I do, and I hope that it will remain a going concern.
Yeah, excellent. And I think you did a really excellent job of creating FOMO, whether that's intentional or not, for when you set up. So I think that did a really, really good job.
Yeah, I mean, I've studied a little bit about the way that psychology works, and if you give people, let's say, a time-bound offer or a financially bound offer, and you build up some anticipation, and there's some idea of scarcity, some of those basic principles excuse me, that can help people to take action. I think some people push that too far, and they end up promising the world for something they can't possibly deliver, and it's this will never be discounted as low as this today, and you've got to buy it today. I hate all of that. But if you do it ethically and you're earnest, then I think it can work, and that's what I tried to do.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, it definitely worked. I've got a few more people coming in here. So Naeem, Always good to see and hear the relentlessly helpful John. So yes, absolutely. And John Finnegan. So John was on my show on the second week actually. So he's based in Chicago. So he's saying, so John, do you use the Write, Stew, Edit process for all your LinkedIn posts, or is it handled a bit more spontaneously?
No, sometimes I plan my LinkedIn posts, and it'll be in draft, and then it'll go out the next day. But actually, increasingly, what I'm doing, because I've got the community to lean on, and I did this actually yesterday. I'll do, someone's asked a question, it hasn't been answered adequately, so I'm going to write something about it. And here we go. This is what I've come up with. This is my draft, and I'm going to be publishing this tomorrow, which is what I've done today.
Yeah.
So the community then becomes a bit of a sounding board. Often what I've found is if I do have a spur of the moment thought, then putting out 1 or 2 sentences sometimes gives you a post that gets way more visibility than something that you've meticulously planned for an hour or two. So I do both, and it doesn't really faze me either way. I can plan or I can do it spontaneous. I think that the important thing is be known. If you're being known for one thing and you're showing up consistently, then eventually you'll get people who support you, and it kind of doesn't matter if you've planned it or if you're doing it spontaneously. A lot of people will come around and support what you're saying.
No, that's good. I'm similar in that I do sometimes plan and schedule, and then I get busy and forget, and then just do it spontaneous and then go back. So it's kind of what works at the time, I guess.
Yeah.
So Ella is saying she's delighted to be part of the Espresso Plus group. That's nice. And Joyce is joining from Dubai. So that's nice. And Ben, fantastic to see you both live, and great to hear John's back. Sorry. Oh, thank you, Ben. Thanks for joining. That's great. Okay. So generally in these conversations, everyone's ended up talking about their values. So do you think your values have impacted the type of work you've taken on in the past, or the clients you'll work with, or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, when I was doing copywriting, sometimes a client would come to me and they were asking for something that was definitely out of my purview, or something that I didn't feel comfortable with. I can remember one client who came to me saying that they wanted to respin some content, and I'd never heard that phrase before, and asked him to unpack what it meant. And it was like, essentially, we want to copy the competitor's content and just change some words so it doesn't look like it's copied. Like, no, I'm not going to be doing that for you. Sorry.
No.
But these days, given that I'm kind of in control of my own business through the community now, I'm trying to actively, encourage good hearts and minds. That's what I'm always talking about with my Friday Shout and stuff like that. I want to attract those people to work with, because there's just fewer headaches for me if I can be around people who are more like me, and who have, ethical, organic growth as their business model, rather than the kind of people who want to come in for a few weeks, place a few ads, and make a load of money and then clear off. That's not for me at all. So any kind of get rich quick, or people trying to take shortcuts, it doesn't do it for me. But I often call this the unsexy message of marketing. Actually, you've got to do the work and show up, and sometimes it might take years for that to work. But if you can do it, and there's loads of success stories of people who have just been in and they've done 300 episodes of their podcast and they're still going, and surprise, surprise, they're succeeding. Because they've got the patience that a lot of people lack. So looking for those qualities in the people I work with is, I suppose, it's really quite important to me.
Yeah, and I think you can definitely see that from the community. Everyone's really helpful, really engaged. There's lots of support there, obviously from you, but also just within the group. So I think that definitely comes across, that people are attracted to that group for those reasons.
Definitely a very collegiate spirit, and one of the things I like is there's an old world way of thinking, which is you shouldn't share your secrets, you shouldn't share what you know, because someone's going to come around, stab you in the back, and take all of your clients. And I just don't buy into all of that. I don't think that's true anymore. If it ever was, it might be true in some industries, but it's definitely not true in mine. It wasn't true in copywriting or in editing or in LinkedIn help. I mean, there's loads of LinkedIn consultants. They just share all they know with the other consultants. It's like there's no barriers there, and I love that. And more people like that is what I want in my circle.
Yeah, no, that's good. Got a couple of questions coming through. So Alice has said, how do you recommend to define one's niche on LinkedIn? You've got a couple of tips there.
Yeah, well, I mean, you just got to boil it down to if you were getting your best friend or your best client to describe what you do, and they were only allowed to do it in one sentence, you kind of got to boil it down to its essence. Because what you really want is to be some people think the word pigeonhole is a bad thing, but actually, if you're pigeonholed and someone remembers you as, oh yeah, that's that LinkedIn guy, or yeah, that's that career person, or whatever, that's
Yeah.
much better than someone trying to think of 4 or 5 different things that you do and then just ending up going, oh well, they're a nice person. You know, that they can't
Yeah.
be specific about what you're going to do to help people.
Yeah.
So just think about the one thing that you are good at and that you're passionate at that you could keep doing, and also that you could. Another good way of testing this is, what could you stand up and talk about without any prep for half an hour, let's say.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Maybe
good.
that will give you a signal about what it is that's your, the place where you're going to get into flow, and you really know your subject matter, and you could actually help someone with an addressable business need.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a really good point, actually. The speaking for half an hour without any prep, definitely a good idea. Okay, so Ben is saying, how much does your personal curiosity drive your content versus what your audience wants to hear? So I guess that goes back to your data geek.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, when I start advising people about the idea of content marketing, I always say, just try and cover all of the basis of what questions your real customers are asking. Because so many people don't do that. They don't inspect their email inbox, their sent items folder. They don't remember telephone conversations. They don't remember in-person conversations, where they've been bombarded with loads of questions that they might have answered a million times before, but they've never bothered to put it in a video, or they've never bothered to put it in a blog, and so that's start there. But I kind of feel that because I've been doing that for years, I've got a lot of that covered. And I often say to new connections, just let me know if you've got any LinkedIn questions, because I've probably done a blog or a video about it.
Yeah.
So I've kind of moved into the area where I can just take something that I'm generally interested in, or I think my audience, because I kind of know what my audience likes and they respond to, because I look at my stats and I can see what kind of stuff works. And then I just let myself go down those rabbit holes. And I like doing a lot of experimenting and testing, because it's, like I say, it's the kind of thing that a lot of people don't have the patience for, or maybe they just don't know the basics of how you do testing. And so that's kind of the zone that I'm in now.
Yeah. And that's interesting. So I guess that goes back to your UAT days, doesn't it? Kind of towards the start of your career, understanding how that whole testing process works.
Yeah, it's a lot of, I like that kind of logical reasoning thing. Sometimes someone will come to me with a problem. I mean, I'll give you an example. So we were doing a live Q&A in the community the other day, and one of our members was asking about why some newsletters on LinkedIn don't work in emails and some do. And I was trying to think it out loud, and I gave him a suggested reason. And I said, I'll need to see some examples, and then I can work out what the answer was. And it turned out that I was right. And it's with videos being embedded. If you put a video in a LinkedIn newsletter, the email just goes not very well at all.
Okay.
That kind of logical, reducing things to its simplest form and trying to work out if it works when you do this, but not when you do this, then that's probably the reason. And let's dig into that. I love doing all of that stuff, because it's the kind of thing that a lot of people just don't think about enough, or just skirt over and just think it's one of those things. But sometimes there's a pattern underneath it.
Yeah.
You can uncover that, then you've got an insight that people will find useful.
Yeah, no, that's good. And then Alice has asked a follow-up question saying, there seems to be a gazillion people doing whatever the thing is already. How do you stand out? So I guess, how do you stand out in your niche?
Yeah, so I suppose you need to do something that is going to be memorable. You need some memorable wording, ideally. I mean, I hit upon relentlessly helpful by complete accident, but it's stuck and it's in my headline, and it will probably never leave my headline. I've even got trademark for it now. That was a moment of inspiration. But what you need to get to is something that describes what you do in a way that others will remember and echo back to you. That's the thing to look for. So I suppose look at what elements of your personality you bring to your work, and see whether there's anything that you can earnestly dial up. I mean, in my book, I talk about finding your brand building blocks, which are usually 4 or 5 things that define the way you show up in your business and the things that are memorable about you. And a lot of people sometimes retreat to a sense of what I'd call hygiene factors. They'll just say something like, we're really professional. well,
Yeah.
well, everyone should be that.
Yeah.
That's not a
That's not a
differentiator
differentiator.
at
Yeah.
all. It's
Yeah.
got to be something a little bit more nuanced than that, but something that you can dial up and make sure that comes out in everything that you do. So I've been doing the whole, teacher, not preacher, relentlessly helpful, cheeky geek, and attitude of
Yeah.
gratitude and eager experimenter. These are my building blocks, and I can
Yeah.
try and put that into everything I do so that people will remember me for those things.
Yeah.
So that's the advice I'd give to Alish is
Yeah.
to maybe look back at the book and think about what those 4 or 5 differentiators would be for you, and try and put some memorable language around them. Build your own brand lexicon, your own dictionary of terms that you use that people will start to remember you for. So.
Yeah, no, that's really good. Kind of leading on to that, I guess one of the other things you do, and you've already mentioned, is your Friday shout. So how did you come up with that idea, and how do you decide on people?
Well, that wasn't planned at all. I mean, it was just one Friday, and it was still in the Twitter days where I was still using Twitter quite a lot. And I just thought I'd give someone a shout out, and I mentioned it on LinkedIn as well. And then I just came back the next Friday and did the same thing. And back then it was just a pretty basic image post with a bit of text. And tag the person. It was just a nice way of just giving gratitude to someone who'd done something to help me, or it was just a nice person. And somehow or other, I just kept it going, and that just became my what I call content appointment. Every Friday, I won't post anything else. I'll only post a Friday shout. And tomorrow is going to be episode 249. We've been going for more than 5 years now. A couple of breaks for Christmas and stuff here and there, but that's it. It's been every week, and I now do them as video posts. So doing something like that if I were to try and justify it as a business decision, it would be really hard, because it takes time. And it's not like I'm getting paid for the post or anything like that. But I think the goodwill it engenders, and also the fact that it's something for people to remember me by, means that it has some brand value. And it's just a really nice thing to do as well, It's never a chore. It just takes a while to do. So if you can do something like that, where you can mark out part of your calendar that says, I'm going to create this kind of appointment content once a week or once a month even, it could be your route to being known. But you've got to do it for ages. I mean, like no one knew what this was at episode 50. But we're almost at 250. Like, a lot of people know what it is now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So how do you go about choosing people? People that you've been dealing with, I guess, and you like them?
Well, it's just people who have been in my network usually for a little while, and they've just shown some, just nice characteristics. I always talk about good hearts and minds. It's very hard to codify what that means in practice. You could just the vibe that you get from someone. But for example, if someone were to come to me and says, "Oh, could you put me in the Friday shout?" That's basically an immediate no, because anyone who would ask that question isn't the right profile of person to be in there. Very often it's someone who might be maybe a little bit more introverted, who would never think of bigging themselves up, and I'll think, okay, I'll do that. I'll do that for you. And it, often it's people who are in the community, but that's only a function of the fact that I spend most time with those people, but it's not exclusively them at all. So yeah, and long may it continue, because it's good fun doing it.
It's great. Yeah. And so you gave one to me about, I don't know, 18 months ago, I suppose, maybe a bit more, something like that anyway. But yeah, it was totally unexpected. It was something that I'd always thought, oh, that'd be a cool group to be a part of. And yeah, it was great. It was really great.
Well, there you go. See, you never asked, and that was part of the qualifying criteria. And I used to tell people ahead of time that they were going to be, but I try and keep it a surprise now, which sometimes means that you catch people when they're on holiday and you don't get a load of comments until later on. But it's a nice surprise to drop into your inbox of a Friday morning.
It is, yeah, definitely. Alish has said he will look into dialing up the less crazy side. Excellent.
Well, there you go. I mean, maybe you've answered your own question. Maybe you need to walk into the crazy a bit more.
Yeah. And Jeff saying never sure is key. It has to be fun as unique. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, blimey, we're pretty much out of time. So let's just quickly ask general advice. So what general advice would you give to people who are looking to switch into self-employed work from an employed position?
Well, I mean, it worked out for me because I was in a position of desperation. When I went self-employed, I was made redundant, and my daughter was like 2 or 3 months old. So it was like, we have to make this work now, otherwise we're in big trouble. But if you've got time to plan, you know, and it's not forced upon you, then
Yeah.
what I would do is I would spend some time building connections, maybe behind the scenes, like having conversations with people, and just letting them know what your ideas are for your self-employed life,
Yeah.
and trying to find as many introductions to people who might be interested in learning more about that, perhaps as direct clients or even just as referral partners, so that
Yeah.
when you're ready to launch, you can launch with some certainty that you're not going from scratch, but actually a load of people are already primed for the message,
Yeah.
and are wanting to support you. So I think a lot of people just think that you can put out a tweet or an Instagram post or a LinkedIn post and suddenly the world's going to know. They're not.
No.
It needs a lot of repetition, and the more you can soften up the ground by letting people know ahead of time, the more support you'll get.
Yeah.
And it's a tough gig, because if you're moving from one thing to
Mhm.
another, it's really hard on LinkedIn, especially, where it's like, well, we knew you for one thing, and now like the next day you're going to be something totally different. You've got to have that behind the scenes channels going on, otherwise it's gonna be weird.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the thing is, you need to try and remember as well, people like to help people, don't they? So if you tell them what it is you're going to be doing, then there's going to be people there supporting you.
Yeah.
Definitely. Okay, so Ella has just said she loves the idea of differentiators. It's what makes you unique and different to others, makes you stand out, and don't forget to share some of your personal stories. So that's great, definitely. And Jerry is saying, thank you for the help you gave me.
Oh, nice.
That's very nice. Thank you. Okay, so what's the best way for people to get in touch with you, John? And how do you work? Connections, followers?
LinkedIn is the obvious place, and if you
Yeah.
can spell my name, you'll find me very easily.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm happy
I'll
to
put a link
connect.
in the chat, obviously.
I'm happy to connect. I do ask people to look in my about statement for a secret word that I include there, because anyone who uses that when they invite me to connect is almost certain to get my positive attention. So yes, if you could do that, and then I'd be open to having a chat after that. You can also find out more if you search my name Espirian. You'll find my website, and then you can find more about the community through there too.
Excellent, thank you. So thank you very much for joining me, and thank you to everyone watching. If anyone's got any other questions, please do feel free to put them up. I know there'll be some people watching on catch up later, so go back and have a look at those. I've got people booked up now till the end of July. Next week I'm back with Ashley Leeds, so he is the 15-minute guy who has had 30 different jobs. So that's going to be a busy conversation, I'm sure. Okay, and Salima is saying thank you for the event. Oh, thank you. Well, thank you very much for joining. So thanks again, everybody. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next week. Thanks, John.
Fantastic. Thanks for having me, Sarah. Cheers.
Bye.